to edit out.
I know.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you some questions, Carlitos.
Okay.
Let's start with...
Go slow on the questions so I can...
Okay, so you can really get them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, describe your work and intention. What are your goals? What do you hope to accomplish with your music? I know that's a big question, but do you ever think about what it is you want to communicate with your work? With your work, with your musical work?
Well, basically it's in my expression. I hope to accomplish my expression of feeling musically to share with everybody else. So my goal is to share my expression and my creativity with
the listeners, dancers, you know.
Absolutely. And the dancers.
Yeah, especially, huh? At what point did you become aware that you were a creative?
At the age of 6, 7 years old, I was already doing the playing music, but I was learning with my brother Bismark. He was the one that got me into playing drums. So I'm actually a drummer at heart. That's my first instrument. And then my brother was playing with 2 other bands, the City Limits, San Francisco, and then La Internacional Bahia. And then he used me as a sub to sub for my uncle's band, which is Los Beamers from Nicaragua, a band that played tropical music, cumbia, merengue, and ballads, some salsa. And that was during his mid-60s. I was just a kid.
Oh, okay. What age was?
I was at the age of 7 and a half, 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really an early time.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feed that creativity, and were there others around you who supported your creativity?
Yes, my uncle supported it after he accepted me in the band, and I auditioned.
At 7 years old?
At 7 years, 7 and a half actually. So my mother supported it, my dad supported it, providing that my uncle was going to be my guardian during the time I was performing,
right.
And he was responsible for me wherever I went with him, because he would pick me up for rehearsal and he would drop me back home, and then he would pick me up for the gigs, and then he would bring me back home as well. So yeah, that support was in the family.
Family support,
yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
So how has your music evolved over time, would you say?
It is still evolving, but it has evolved into a lot of different creativity musically, even up to today's music, reggaeton, bachata, today's cumbia, today's salsa. I play the old salsa, and I've done the salsa romantica, and so, I've done a little bit of everything, reggae, and I've done some rock music as well, blues, jazz, Latin jazz. So it has evolved slowly into different type of ethnicities of different groups. We're playing with different musicians and playing with different bands. So it's still evolving, because every time I perform with somebody, is always a learning process. I never stop learning from that, and I just get more creative from there.
You take something from every
yes.
time you play, every time you're with a different type of musical genre.
When I play with different musicians, whether it be jazz, blues, rock, reggae, cumbia, merengue, salsa, bachata, you just get into a creative mood where you learn their materials, or you pick up on whatever they want you to do, and then you get creative on top of that, because creativity comes from other people's music as well. So you get inspired, and then you hear a melody, and you could always change that melody, and that melody becomes yours legally. So as long as you change the melody, we all have the same chord progression, and we go through the same
physical process.
the physical process, but what I'm referring to is the scale. Everybody has the same scale. We all learn the scale. So the scale is just do, re, mi, fa, si, la, si, do, and that's it, right? So out of that, you got to be creative and get and build on the melody, you know, or work on the melody, or you have a lyrics and you want to put a melody behind it. So that becomes part of your composing, writing, creativity. Then you have the arrangement part of the music, which you have to arrange. So that's another process of the creativity. And then you have to direct the creativity and direct the music. So that's another part of the creativity that you have to learn how to arrange, write, and create the music, and then you direct it with depending on how many instrumentation you're using. Now, what I mean by instrumentation, it could be like congas, bongo, timbales, drums, bass, piano, cello, sax. If it was going to be a horn section, it'd be sax, trumpet, trombone, tuba. You know, it could be different kind of instrumentation. But instrumentation is what you decide to put in on your creativity. So depending on the gender you're working on, or depending on what type of music it would be, it could be polka, it could be something simple as even if it was classical. You know, people think classical is just piano, but piano is not the only thing you hear in classical music. You hear violin, you hear bass, you have cello, you have strings, you got flute, you know, you have an orchestra behind that. So instrumentation is very important on your creativity.
What are your favorite instruments and why?
My favorite instrument is the ones, drums, number one, because that's the first instrument I learned how to play. Two was percussion, timbales, conga, bongo. And then I picked up on the piano and learned a few chords, progression, and learned some scales. And then I picked up the guitar and I learned the chord progression on the guitar as well, scales. Same thing with the bass guitar. I played the bass and I learned a little bit of the scales and you know, learned the skills, the technique. When I was in elementary school, I picked up some clarinet. I wanted to be a sax player, but they told me I have to learn the clarinet fingering, so I picked up the clarinet. And then another time in school, another year, I picked up the trumpet, and I learned how to play on the B flat scale with the trumpet. And then I also picked up the trombone, which is the bass clef. And I found out that the trombone's the same readings as the bass guitar. So it was easier for me to pick up the bass and learn how to play bass once I learned how to read the trombone lines that was reading with the trombones. It's the same clef. So that became, those are my favorite instruments, you know.
So how would you say, because you talked a lot about all the different things that go into making music itself, arranging and changing instruments and that kind of thing. How would you say that inspiration itself shows up for you when you are creating, for instance, your own piece?
Inspiration could come anytime. There's never a day that goes by where you don't get inspired. It could come while you're hearing it, music on the radio. It could come to you in a dream. It could come to you at a rehearsal. It could come to you performance, gig, live. Or it could come to you while you're just having a Starbucks and a sandwich, you know.
Right.
So all that plays a role on your style of living, you know, how you take it day by day, how much time you put into your music, and how much dedication you have to it. So all that plays a role to it. So that's the way I see it. I mean, that's just my opinion. Other musicians will have a different outlook or different outtake on what I have to say, probably from, I would say, either a contrast from me, but creativity will come to you any time of the day, you know. I mean, it comes to me a lot, and the best thing for a musician to can do, and the advice I give people is put it down on recording. You know, get your inspiration on recording. If you got a melody, if you have to say la 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 la, you know, that's a melody.
Yeah.
Put it down on the recording. If you have a lyrics, then write it, and you can find the melody for it later. But creativity is inspiration from how you feel, what time of day it is, and how you feeling that day. Sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're like not in the mood, and some other times you're too exhausted, and other times you're energetic. So all that plays a role on how you take music for granted when you want to do something with it.
Yeah.
Your dedication is number one. Number two is how much time you put into it. So.
Right. So what would you say that inspiration is at its core?
It's at its core when you're actually creating it. So that's at its core right there. That means you already have a melody, or that means you have lyrics, or that means you have an arrangement, or that means that you're putting it together with the instrumentation, whether you're going to add a bass, piano, guitar, drums. That's the basic right there, rhythm section, and then you have percussion, and then you have horns. So when you add brass to it, it adds more. You could even add more to that. You could add synthesizer. You could add strings. You could add, you know, different colors to what your creativity is at its core when you already have that core. Meaning you have that creativity, you're already working on it.
That essence, that piece.
Yes, that piece is already
that you
there.
Build on.
You're working on it, you know. I mean, because when it comes to you, the first thing you want to do is put it on tape, you know, record it, and you want to listen to it back over and over, and then once you hear it, you get other ideas that comes to you. Because performing other people's music, you get ideas automatically, because you're already listening and you're already playing it, but inspires you to kind of offshoot off of that and create something out of it.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that when you're in that process of adding layers, a layer upon layer of, you know,
creativity?
Would you say that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you say that you are present and in the moment of that
Absolutely.
creation?
Yes, you have to be present in the moment, because it's your concentration and it's your creativity. If you're not present in the moment of your creativity, then where are you going to be at? How are you going to create it? How are you going to evolve from that little fetus that you're creating? Just like a child, it becomes a fetus.
Mm-hmm.
The minute before it was a fetus, it was already a creativity. You don't know what gender is going to be. If it's going to be male, female, you don't know that. But that little fetus is going to grow, and it's going to grow within 9 months. It could take you 2 weeks. It could take you months. But the truth of the matter is once you start that creativity, that's a fetus that you're going to grow on. It's going to grow on you, and you're going to go ahead and start inspiring yourself to add to it or take away, depending what your creativity would be, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I could give you an example, but I don't have a keyboard here right now with me.
Can you show us on the bass?
I could show you, like, if I was like playing a conga, and I was, that's just a beat right there.
Right.
But if I add a bass to that, and I add a guitar, and I add a drum to that, my creativity starts working and starts inspiring me to add more to it, and even add lyrics to it if you have to. So it starts with a simple beat, or it starts with a simple lyrics, or it starts with a melody. But some people have that talent where they like to write, and they like poets, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They love to write, and that's a creativity right there within itself. And then other people have that melody talent, you know, where they could just sing a melody to that lyrics. And other people have an arrangement to it that they could arrange towards that. So at the same time, it's all at its core, you know, you're gonna be creating, and you're gonna be inspired. There's a time of day that you feel inspired. There's a time of day where you don't want to do anything. Kick your shoes off, put your slippers on, lay down, and close yourself to the world. Don't even listen to music. I tell you, sometimes I come home after playing 2-3 gigs a day, and I don't even want to hear what I play all day, because your body is in that mode.
Recovery.
When you can't, you have to recover from it. But you can't go to sleep within the hour or hour and a half. Sometimes it takes 2 hours to go to bed after performing, because of the fact that the energy was so high, and it takes a while to kind of unwind, you know.
Okay, let's talk about performing.
Okay.
Is performance a necessary part of your creating music? In other words, is that why you create, to perform, or do you perform so that you can? Do the two go together? In other words,
well, you have to remember, performance is a duty. You're there to perform. Okay, it's like, hey, I have a gig. Can you make it? What day is it? You find out the day. You find out the time. You know. You
right,
ask.
but that's because you're a professional musician. What if you were just creating a song, or you're creating songs for yourself? Do you think that performance goes hand in hand with creating?
Well, absolutely, because
for a musician,
before you can even perform, you have to create first. So creativity is the first thing you do to put something together, and then you're gonna add your musicians to come and perform it. But when I get called to do performance, it's not something that I created already. It's something I have to learn that someone else created, or somebody wrote, or somebody has for me to read.
Right, it's
as
already
a musician.
down on paper. Yeah.
So when I mean by performance, if I perform all night, and then I did it 2-3 gigs in one night, in one day, it's hard to unwind from all that, because of the fact that the energy was so high from the first gig, and then driving to the second gig, and then setting up and doing sound check and performing that gig, and then going to the next gig and doing the same thing. It takes a toll on a musician, you know. You would be exhausted, you know, and all that. I mean, we get tired too, just like anybody else, just like any other job. If you have an 8-hour job, you stand up all day, or you put in 12 hours a day and you're standing up, it takes a toll. Well, playing music is the same way. You know, it could be verbal, it could be physical, you know, so it has its ups and downs as well. A lot of people think, oh, you're a musician, you love to play, you know. Yeah, of course we love to play, but it's a lot of work too, you know, a lot of work putting into it. You have to be dedicated, you got to know your craft, and if you want to work a lot, you have to know it really well and do it well, so people can respect that and say, hey, you know, I know somebody to come in and they can cover for me or cover for someone else. But that's aside from the creativity. Creativity is something that you will gain from performance, but you're going to offshoot something that's going to trigger certain materials that you play, that you say, ah, I like that line. I wonder if I could use it and twist it and make it my own. Because that's how people get inspired to write and create from other people's music.
How do you make room for creativity in your life?
You have to be dedicated to say, hey, I want to do an album, I want to do a record, I want to do a EP, I want to do a, you know, you gotta set yourself for that. It's like saying, okay, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be, so you just can't just say, I'm going to be a lawyer tomorrow and become a lawyer. It doesn't take one day to become a lawyer.
To dedicate
You work your way up to it.
And what kinds of things do you do besides setting aside time to practice, of course? Do you do anything else, diet or health-wise, something that you would call health-wise, for yourself to make, before you get in, to set yourself up for that creativity, to receive it?
Well, yeah, of course, diet is important because, you know, if you don't sleep and eat well, you're not going to be, how do you say it?
Effective?
Well, yeah, you can say effective, but you need your sleep. Hey,
Yeah.
you need to eat well. You know, if you don't do those things, you're gonna be lacking a lot of things. You know, I can't see anybody going 2 days playing music without sleeping
Right.
or having proper diet. Now, a lot of musicians are on the road. You know, you're on the road. You might see a McDonald's or Carl's Jr. or Starbucks, and you say, I gotta pick something up because by the time I eat dinner, it's not gonna be until the evening, if that. You know, sometimes you don't even eat at all, and you wonder why musicians don't gain weight, or they do eat too much, or you're overweight. Well, you know, it's a factor that your health has got to be, you know, in good shape. You got to be in good shape to play music, because if you're not in good shape, you're not going to perform your best, and you're not going to give your best performance. So it's always important that you get proper sleep, that you eat well, or get something in your stomach, because you're on the go, or because you have several gigs, or you have to travel in advance. You know, for an example, if I'm coming from the Central Valley, I leave 2 or 2.5 hours sooner than everybody else that lives in the Bay Area, because I have to anticipate a little bit of traffic, accidents, or any slow delay, or any construction.
Right.
You know, on the way home, I get more construction than I do on the way up to the Bay Area. So sometimes I get home at 4 in the morning. Yeah, and it's not like I want to be home that time. It's because the construction holds you another half an hour. It says 15 minutes, but it's like half hour, 45 minutes, because a lot of people are driving at that time to travel to that area, and you got to go through there to get home. So yeah, health it's important. Yes, and your diet.
Yeah.
So.
Now, is there a language that you've developed to talk with words about your music with patrons, or do you find that the music speaks for itself? In other words, you're playing, you get off the stage, and someone wants to know about a particular piece of music and how you did that. Do you have a way of talking to people who are not artistic, who don't know music well? I mean, other than being a dancer, I can't really discuss with you music well. So do you have a language that you speak with non-musical people?
Well, if I have a language with non-musical people, it would be either dancers or people are sitting down listening. It would be a body language. And a lot of times it's not even verbal. Just their expression, their smile, their concentration and tuning in to listening. So verbal language, no, but I would say emotional language, maybe. Emotional reaction, expression, and concentration. Now you can see people are really concentrating and looking at the band, or you know, they have their attention on the band, or they're listening, try to listen to everybody individually. I talked to some friends, and they seem to be concerned about it. Not concerned, but they seem to be curious what every instrument does at the same time we all play. Because they say, you play the bass, and I say yes, and they go, what's the bass sound like? And it's like,
wow.
Yeah, and I say, well, if you hear the music, and then all of a sudden you hear something that's like, you don't hear the bottom, you know, like which is the bass. You stop. If I stop playing the bass, it would be like somebody turning off the bass on your stereo, and you only hear the mid and the high, but you don't hear no lows.
Right.
It would say like something's missing, they'll say. And when they say that, it's because they're aware that something's missing, and that's because the bass guitar stopped playing for some reason. Maybe there was a power outage, or the cable messed up, or the amplifier just went out, and all of a sudden you're playing bass, you're playing the bass, and then all of a sudden it's just percussion and piano and guitar and vocals, and there's no bass. it's hard for them to distinguish unless something really that drastic happened, and then they can say, "Oh, that's what it was. It was missing the bass," you know. So a lot of times they know what a guitar sounds like because they hear Jimi Hendrix play, or they know what a piano sounds like because they hear Beethoven play, or they know, you know, what a percussionist is. If they hear a drummer, they hear the beat. And when the drummer stops playing the beat, they know that's a drum. But for some reason, it's hard for them to distinguish when the bass stops playing or when the bass is playing. A lot of time when the bass is playing, the music's playing, they're not really in tune with the bass. They hear it, but they're not in tune. They don't know unless the bass all of a sudden, boom, stops. And all you hear is just percussion. Mm-hmm. So for them to have that language and say, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong. And that's because either the bass stopped playing or something else stopped playing. And so it's a language that people reacts. They react to it. And I find that very amusing because, you know, if you really ask somebody what the bass sounds like, they won't know unless I start playing it, you know? And they know it's like boom, 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 boom. They do that all the time. But when the music plays, you know, they hear that boom, 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 but they think it's part of the piano or part of the percussion, you know, and it's really the foundation of the whole band, in reality. That's the way I see it, you know.
How do you, and this was one of the questions, this question is not from the list that I sent you. How do you communicate? How does it feel to communicate with a floor full of dancers? What is it that you feel from a dancer when you're playing?
You know, I'll tell you, it's the same feeling of seeing a crowd in front of you that's not even dancing. And they're just right there in front of you. And they're like, wow, you know, it's the same energy. Whether they're dancing or looking.
Oh, okay.
It's still the same energy.
Or listening.
What it is the communication, it's the eye contact. It's the body language and the expression that they express towards you. You know, I'm playing a song, I'm singing it. I see somebody just on their table and they're singing along, but they're like, I could see them. No, they know the song.
They're feeling it.
They're feeling it, but they're singing it, and just the fact that I'm singing it and they're singing it with me, even though I don't hear them, but that's a communication right there. That's a feedback that I get. That's very gratifying, you know. And it's the same thing with the crowd, and the same thing with a dancer, you know. Expression is everything that makes a musician feel like, hey, I'm doing something positive, you know. And that's the energy that we feed on.
Yes. Awesome. That's great to hear. During a performance, how do you sense or receive? So, you've actually talked about that. How you sense or receive the feedback when you see someone singing to a song that you're playing or something. I'm sorry, I covered that.
I could also put it in an artistic way. Say that I did a canvas and I painted instruments. You know, just bass, conga, timbale, drums, just nothing but instrument. And I put a certain color on a bass guitar.
I've done that.
Or a certain color on a conga. And the reaction that people will say, I never seen a bass that color, but the reaction was like, they never seen it. That's the feeling of gratitude and say, wow, they notice my artwork.
Right,
you know? And that's the same feeling musically when you're playing and they go, wow, they're singing my song, you know?
Yeah.
That's
do you, human to human, do you feel that in any special way when there's, you know, do you feel it in a, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is it a superficial, or is it on a deep level of communicating with another human being?
The energy it's so magnetic feeling, you know.
Can you feel it in your body?
When you play the music, you feel the music, right? Just like the crowd's feeling it. Well, think about it. we're creating it.
Right.
So the energy is a much higher level than receiving. So yes, you feel it, and that energy is just very, very moving. You know, it moves you.
Yeah.
And,
Emotionally? Or?
Yes, emotionally, physically, and all that feeling that you have as you express it is the feeling of you know, I guess you could say this like falling in love.
Thank you.
know?
That's exactly
Yeah.
what I was thinking in my head.
You never
It's
know
like
when you
love.
fall in love, right?
Yeah.
But music is something that I could fall in love over and over and over again, because it's the feeling of gratification of when I'm playing my instrument. I'm in tune with my instrument. I have a relationship with my instrument. I make my instrument talk, and I can express my feeling through it,
Yeah.
as well as using my voice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the feeling of playing music. It's like, you know, love at first sight. And it's like every time you pick up that instrument, or every time you do the performance, whether if it's different bands, it's always love at first sight. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It never gets old.
Yeah.
Because it's my passion.
Yeah.
And passion for me is like, you know, it's like indulging, and you know, it's like indulging on a banana split, you know, and I gotta have that banana split, or I gotta have that Starbucks coffee, you know, and it feels so good, because when you have it and you just relish it, you know, to your satisfaction, because remember that you have to. It's your feelings. It's your expression. It's yeah. Well, you're the one creating it. So
right.
I share with everybody like if it was a therapy thing, that I want to give everybody a massage, right?
Right.
But musically, I want to give them that vibration massage,
right.
where they feel it, and they could feel positive about it and say, hey, man, when this guy plays, I really feel it. I know where he's at. It makes me want to dance, or it makes me want to listen, or it makes me want to buy his record or something, you know. But that's the energy that you want to create with the crowd, and you know.
So do you think that with the crowd, they're giving you validation that they are hearing it, that they're tapping their feet, that they're singing along?
Absolutely.
Do you think that that's an equal energy exchange?
It's an automatic energy, because you know the crowd who are listening, and you know the crowd who's not listening.
Yeah, drinking,
okay?
kind of talking.
There's people who doesn't listen, but doesn't know how to express, or doesn't know how to engage. Because if they look at a musician, they feel like, oh, geez, he saw me. You know, and they might think something else of it. But it's not even about that, because when we're performing, we're looking at the crowd, but I'm not looking at anybody specifically. To me, everything is just like a fog. Everybody's face is the same to me, and I could express, and they might think I'm looking at them and might smile at me, and that smile I might catch that smile. I will smile back, but it's a gratitude of expression and satisfaction at the same time, because remember, this is about your passion, you know, just like an artist painting, that's your passion. You know, whatever you do in life is something that's a passion, that you have to love it, and you have to know how to take care of it, you know, and you know how to take care of yourself, and you have to know how to express it so that you could be accepted at the same time. It goes with attitude, you know, it goes with ego, it goes with self-centered. You know, musicians have a high IQ for a lot of things, you know. They have everybody is their own world. Every musician is a superstar in their mind, and that's a good thing. Okay. The only time it's a bad thing is when you need to work on your craft, and you think that you're a superstar, and don't want to take constructive criticism. Okay. There's two things in life as a musician. One is the chief. Two is the Indian. If you're used to being a chief, that's fantastic. If you could be a chief, that's great, and you got people behind you. But there's times when you need to be in a band and you're not the chief.
Yeah,
but
it's
you gotta
teamwork,
know,
right?
You gotta know how to accept that and become an Indian, and don't elaborate or add more than you need to when it's not you being the chief or your band. Like if it's your band, quote unquote, you're the leader. So whatever you say, you have the last word. You could get everybody's opinion and get a lot of suggestions and ideas. But as a leader, it's a different outtake from being one of the Indians, which is one of the members. Now, not everybody have that skills of being a leader. Not everybody have that skills of being a musical director. And you got to have your skills to contribute to the music as a performer, whether if you're playing congas, timbales, bongo, bass, piano, horns, or anything else, drums, you know, guitar, and violin, so flute. I mean, it goes on and on, instrument-wise, but at the same time, you got to remember, you got to be humble, you got to be, you know, kind of accepted to whatever criticism comes to you and not take it personal.
Right. In order to better your playing, right?
Well, in order to contribute and get along.
Right. Oh,
because I've seen leaders, I'm not going to name anybody, but I've seen leaders who they feel that because if I help direct or if I help sing background or I do some lead singing and I'm playing the bass at the same time, they feel threatened that if I contribute too much, they feel threatened and they feel that either I'm going to, you know, ambush them with something
or it might take away from them.
It might take away from them, exactly, and they feel insecure and they start saying things to you where you don't want to go there with them.
Right, right. So do you create a separate type of music for yourself versus music you might play for an audience? Do you have private music that you don't share with anyone?
I have private music that I'm working on.
Oh.
The reason they're private is because I'm at the creativity
phase
mode right now with that.
Yeah.
So it's not ready to be exposed. So, but I do have private music, you know, and I have private lyrics and melody. All that, you know, will come in time. I never rush anything. I have songs that I've created 10, 15 years ago that no one have heard. And today I said, maybe one of these songs will be the songs that I should record and never know that one song could be the song to take you to the next level. It's just when you're at that creativity mode, sometimes you put these songs in the back burner, and what you put in the back burner could be treasure for somebody else. And they would say, hey, I like that. Where did you pick this out? You know, I had that for like 10 years ago.
Right.
And they're like, wow, well, let's record that.
Right,
you know?
right.
So a lot of times what you think is not ready could be ready for other people if you have some kind of producer or a manager that's trying to get you to the next level.
And the right set of people. It requires the right set of musicians, right?
Well, a lot of times these people are not musicians. A lot of these people are people like managers and people who are like producers. You know, yes, you need collaboration with other musicians to make it better, because my creativity could be so much, but if I could...
You know what?
It turned on?
No, it didn't. Keep on going. It was just low battery.
Yeah. But we have a little thing there. You can plug it right there.
Where?
You can power it right there and put the thing on it. Once you pause it.
Well, I have one more question.
Okay.
What would you say to someone...
I didn't finish the last one.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you were at the end. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Finish.
Lost track.
I'm sorry. You were talking about creating this separate type of music and whether something is available to show people. And I said, well, you got to have the right musicians. And you said, no, you got to have...
Well, no, I didn't say no, but what I meant by that, it was like, yes, you need the right musicians if you're going to add to it. Like, if I wanted to make my music better, I'm going to call a certain musician that's going to bring something to the table and they're going to contribute to it. And they might say, hey, look, this sounds good. How about you do this? And how about you do that? And then we try it. And if I like it, I'll leave it in there. If I don't like it, I could edit it or do whatever. But a lot of times people who are producers or managers are looking for talent, you know, scouting. And if you have something and they hear it and you never put it out, that could be a treasure for them. You don't know. You just never know who you talk to. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Ah. So what would you say to someone who maybe may think of themselves as not having any kind of creativity in their body, and you know, how what would you say to someone about tapping into that creativity?
Well, this is what I would say. First of all, you want to do music, you got to take that first step and say, I want to learn, I want to perform, I want to be a performer, I want to be a writer, I want to be a composer. You got to pick and choose what part of the music you want to do. If you start out being a composer and a writer, then you're going to take some classes at, you know, Delta College, and you might want to pick up some composing and writing, and they'll sit you down on the piano and show you what a melody is, how a melody is created, and how to go about it when you write your lyrics to create that melody. So first, you have to have that ambition. You got to be ambitious. I say to those people who pick up guitar, drums, congas, or buy some instrument and never take lessons, and they just have it for show and never become musicians. You know, I tell parents that I see with children that brings their kids to the stage and they want to play the congas, and I say, hey, you know, I will encourage your children if you buy them little hand percussion and start them at a young age, because you never know if they're going to like it and become a musician. Or might want to take some lessons down the road. Instead of forcing a child to become a piano player when that child doesn't have any interest in that. So that's important. You got to be ambitious about it. You got to want to do something. If you're going to buy a conga, you're not going to buy it for show unless you're just buying it for show. But if you're going to buy it because you're serious about learning, then you're going to have to learn the rudiments behind the conga. There's rudiments for everything. And I would say to that question, you have to be ambitious to first, you know, to learn something, to become a musician. If you don't have that ambition and you don't have that in you, then that's fine. You could buy the instrument and you have a drum set and you just put it in the corner and you could just let it collect dust or sit on it and bang on it for a few times. But if you're serious about it, you would take lessons and you seek to go get lessons. Now, there's YouTubes. You could get lessons on YouTube, and a lot of people understand that pretty well, and they'll learn. There's the people that learn by watching, people learn by listening, and other people learn by playing. So there's different methods of learning how to play an instrument. So choose the one that's best for you and pursue it. You know, that's what I would say to somebody who's just starting out.
Why don't you play something for us?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. You can't hear this, but this is a Calito. This is a Calito bass, and it's acoustic right now. It's not, you know, it's an old bass, by the way. But I could play a descarga. You know?
Yeah.
That's Descarga de Fania. And then you have another song that I could do a descarga. This is called Cachaos. Descarga Cachao. That's another descarga there. And then you have regular tumbao, you know. So there's so many different ways to go about it. as what you want to do. This is just Latin music. You would consider this salsa, but it could be in the old days it would be pachanga, and charanga, and mambo or guaracha, you know. And what they did, they put all those rhythms together, and because it's so different, so many different rhythms, songo, you know, Mozambique, Huahuanco, all those rhythms put together, it's like a salad of salsa, or like a salsa that you have different flavor, and there's a little bit of everything. So what I'm playing there, you could consider that salsa, because that's the new way of looking at that sound. But before that, in the 1960s and 50s, it was called guaracha, mambo, you know, danzón. You know, right? So if you have a little bit of education, you would look into these rhythms and see that they come from Cuba, they come from Africa, they come from South America, and they come from Europe as well. So that's a whole different realm of education. But it's always good to be educated on your instrument. First thing you want to do is learn how to tune, and then once you learn how to tune, whether it's a congas or timbales or bass, or you know, any other instrument that needs tuning, that's the first thing you want to do, is learn how to tune it. And then after that, start learning the techniques, you know. So the techniques is important, how you play the bass, whether it's this way or this way. Some people play with the thumb, some people play with this upwards, and other people use a slap, you know. And so different techniques, different sound, so different groove.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really nice. All right. Thank you so much, Calito.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.